Hello, everybody. This is another installment of the Extended Ask Ella show, and this is where I get to bring on cool guests and talk about issues that are real estate related, real estate adjacent, and frankly, things you kind of need to know financially. So today, I have an amazing person who also happens to be my property manager, Noelle Denton with Delan PDX Property Management. Did I get that right?
You got it right. It is a handful.
So we're going to talk about renting out your real estate something or other in the Portland area predominantly and in Portland area in general. And the questions I want Noelle to answer today are many. So we'll focus on just a few because, of course, we can't go on for a day, which we would if you really unleashed both of us. If you own rental real estate in the Portland Metro, and again, more generally in Oregon, Portland Metro has its own quirks, shall we say, and we'll address them. But if you own your own rental real estate, or if you're thinking of buying a rental or turning your current home into a rental, there are so many things that you need to know, especially if that property happens to be in Portland proper and Multnomah County. So without much ado, again, Noelle, you are my go-to for all real estate rental questions. And I want you to talk a little bit about what it is that you do, what it is that Delan does, and tell us a little bit about, like I said, what you do, what your property management firm does, and of course, that will bring up the first question. Why is it so important to have a property manager instead of trying to DIY renting out a home or a condo or a townhome or a duplex, triplex, fourplex in the Portland area?
The biggest thing about property management is what I think is compliance. So all of the laws. Oregon has tons of laws for property management across the board. Yes, it is your house. Yes, you own it. But you are accepting money for a tenant to live there. And those tenants do have rights. At Delan, what our whole motto is that we want tenants to be proud of the homes that they live in. They want to take pride in the homes that they live in. They may be renters, but oh my goodness, they want their guests to come over. They want their guests to see how great their home is, and they want to be happy with their property management company. And the reason why our tenants are happy with us as property management is because we always ensure that things of compliance are 100% on board. So getting repairs done, collecting rents, ensuring that everything just flows smoothly. And meanwhile, as we do that, we are keeping our owners' assets at the top of the line quality levels. We do not want owners' assets to start to get run down, to start to have things get left to the side. That's not who we are. We want to maintain our owners' assets throughout. Because when you do that, your tenants are then happy throughout. And what do happy tenants do? Happy tenants take good care of homes, they pay rent on time, and they don't kick up any dust. So one of our values is that we are just always within compliance with repairs, and we are in those homes multiple times a year. And when we're in those homes, we're taking multiple photos, we're checking all the water features, we're going into all of the rooms, and we're making sure that the tenants are held accountable for knowing that they're taking good care of the homes. And then we're also there, we sometimes find repair items that tenants just they never think about, but they might be causing small, very gradual damage to your homes. Well, we'll find them, and then we'll mark them, and then we'll get them fixed. So let's say you have a property with Delan, and we have your home rented out 4, 5, 6 years, and eventually the tenants are like, oh, hey, let's move on. Well, one of the best things our property management company will do is that when tenants move out, you won't be coming to the home and go, oh, I have tens of thousands of dollars worth of repairs to do. No, that is not our quality of homes. That is not our standards. Our homes are going to be maintained in great condition throughout your tenancy. So if it ever does come to a time to sell, you won't have to worry about that aspect. You'll be able to come in and go, maybe I'll do some updates here and there, but you're not going to be shell-shocked that your asset has slowly been deteriorating the entire time you've had it as a rental. Not with our company, at least.
Now, that reminds me actually of what you and I discussed ad nauseum when I discovered you. And yes, a mutual friend put us in touch. But, full disclosure, I've had two property managers before I found you. Thank God I found you. And the prior one had this nasty habit of, I guess, just hitting my rental incoming check for the repairs that needed to be done without really talking to me first about those repairs. And also, from what we discovered later, obviously, not at the time, because yes, I would have dumped them a lot sooner. Um, they were also not really, I guess, going after the tenant for the damage that the tenants did. And I say damage, it doesn't mean that they kicked the walls in or anything, but some of the repairs are normal wear and tear, as you taught me, but other repairs are not normal wear and tear and are caused by the tenants. So let's talk about that for a sec, because to me that was an eye-opener, and I really want anybody and everybody else who's concerned about getting into a rental property business, they need to know that no, not every repair necessarily is something that they have to pay for out of pocket, but also that not all property management companies are created equal to where they will communicate on the level that you do.
Well, thank you. We always like hearing that. So,
Betcha.
actually, legally, if your property management agreements has a trust account, which everyone does, state of Oregon, trust accounts, it can be any level of amount. Ours used to be $500. Inflation increased that to $1,000, and that's specifically for emergency repairs. Let's say something bad happens. Yes, $500 is not going to cut it. So we hiked ours up to 1,000. But in terms of repairs, that is an excellent point. There's different categories of repairs. So let's just go over there. You have essential repairs. Well, what's an essential repair? There's multiple categories of that. In Oregon, you have 48 hours to fix an essential repair that jeopardizes the health or safety of a tenant. So what could that mean? That could be like a window gets broken, the front door lock randomly stops working and they aren't able to secure their home. Their heat goes out in the middle of winter and it's 20 degrees outside. A pipe bursts and is flooding the home. Those are, pretty big emergency ones. You get 48 hours to repair those. A fridge, an oven breaks down. Guess what? That's an essential appliance. You get 72 hours to fix those before you are technically out of a compliance and a tenant can come after you for rent money. And then you have, repairs that are essential, but you get 7 days on those. So let's say the plumbing in one of the bathrooms kind of funky, or you do have a leak. It's not a massive leak, but there is a leak, but they can catch it with a bucket for the time being. Or one of the heaters goes out in one of the rooms. So things that are essential, to live, right? You get 7 days to repair those. And then there are the repairs that you get 30 days to repair. So like, a leaking shower head faucet, like that's one you could probably put off a little bit, but tenants probably aren't going to be happy that they're gradually losing money from the leaking. Or, one of the hinges of the cupboard just does fall off. That happens with wear and tear. Not torn off, because we have seen that too. That is tenant damage. But there are other repairs where like a door stops closing, working properly in and out, or it's beginning to scratch the carpet because it's shifted. Things like that you get 30 days to fix. Washer and dryer, not an essential appliance. Guess what? We're going to push the envelope to 30 days, but we also will offer the tenant to pay for laundry care costs during that time, because we want our tenants to be happy and enjoy living in their homes. But with that, what our company does is we always check in with our owners, regardless what the repairs are. Our PMA does state, Ella, that we don't have to. I mean, if it's under $1,000, we do have the executive right, the right to make decisions. That's actually what the clause is called, to just go out and get those repairs done. However, here, it's your home.
And it's my money.
It's your money. It's your home. Like, you need to know what's going on in your home. And with that, like, that stuff adds up. It really, really does. So what we also do here at Delan is we try to train the tenants, right? Of like, hey, just so you know, this is a repair item. But do you really want your owner to spend like $199 for like a 20-minute repair where you know it's not really doing anything right now? Is it okay if we wait like another month or two and other things pop up? Let's just do a punch list. Is that okay? But we communicate with our tenants about that too, so they understand. And as long as we get it back in writing, the tenant's fine to do that, we're all in the clear.
And see, I think my biggest issue was, and again, even though you have the right per the agreement, and other property management companies, I'm sure do too, go in and do the repairs, but what landlord wants to have a shocker of why is my monthly rental amount transfer into my account short and off the normal without the communication? So the communication piece is really what's most important, I feel, in this equation, besides obviously knowing what the actual repairs are that are essential, not so essential, or non-essential.
Perfect. Well, I mean, we just think communication is key. Another thing with communication, as with actually Ella's property, is sometimes you have tenants that are just really hard on the home, or they are the biggest klutzes you've ever seen. So when we have tenants like that, and they're not renewing, but let's just say we do have a set of tenants where I don't know if someone cursed them or if they just constantly trip in the house. I'm not sure. But sometimes there are repairs that come up and it is not on the owner at all to do those repairs. It is 100% throughout tenant damage. And that's really what a property manager should be looking out for. We're looking out for our owners. It's your asset. It's your money. You know what happens if you're constantly getting repairs, not being told about it? You're going to get lower and lower amount on your disbursements. And then you're going to come to terms and go, why am I even using a property management company if I'm not even getting any money from this? No one wants that. No one wins. So in terms of the communication, we're always up on it. And we will always say whether or not something is tenant damage. So for certain homes where tenants are very hard on the home or they're the biggest klutzes in the world, whenever we send out a vendor for a repair, right, like an essential necessary repair, all we have to do is ask that vendor, hey, can you please inspect this repair item and let us know via the invoice, write out a few sentences and either say, yes, this is wear and tear because X, Y, and Z, or, ooh, this was tenant damage because X, Y, and Z. And then when we get that invoice back, we can either go back to the owner and say, you know what, this really was wear and tear. Sorry, you're eating the cost. Or, yep, we got it in wording from the professional. This was tenant damage. You're going to pay for this out of your trust account, but the second you pay for it, we post those charges back on the tenant portal and your tenant will pay for it by the first of the following month. So it's money out of your account that will go right back into your account for the next billing cycle. So it's a wash to you when that happens.
Well, at least some good news in that regard, as far as I'm concerned, as a landlord. Now, repairs aside, which repairs are a huge piece, and that's actually why so many people even opt in to have a property management company in the first place, is because they don't want to deal with the repairs. They don't want to deal with a 2 a.m. phone call of, the pipes burst or, something happened. That to me is where it started, but the reality is that rolling back to the lovely, lovely, lovely tenant landlord laws in PDX specifically, it all starts at the beginning. It all starts at how you can promote the property, what you can and cannot say, and how do you select the tenants. So let's talk about that a little bit, because that's the piece, honestly, the more I started looking into that, frankly, it scared the living daylights out of me. So bring it.
Okay, so City of PDX is pretty much the most tenant-friendly place in the entire U.S., to the point where other cities are now adopting the laws and the legislation City of PDX has for their tenants. Tenants' rights is a thing, 100%. I have been a tenant for years, and my rights were totally ignored in a lot of ways. Our property management company does not want to be one of those. So with that, City of PDX, one of the very best standards you can go by is go by their low barrier screening criteria, because there's a lot of traps within the City of PDX laws. So for our City of PDX homes, we do, what it stipulates, credit scores of 500 or higher, 2 times a monthly income. They are allowed to have open collections as long as they're $1,000 or less, or $999 and less, I should be more specific. Certain evictions are protected during COVID still. Anything that's been decriminalized within the past several years, if that pops up on a criminal report, that's excused, and things like that. And you only need to have 1 year of professional landlord history. However, if someone doesn't have that, the only way to try to deny a person from that is if they willfully lie by admitting that information, which, of course, how are you going to prove? You can't. So our City of PDX homes, we spend the most amount of time screening tenants. And we pick through everything with a fine-tooth comb, because the bar is at a different level than it is with all the other properties we have within Oregon. You can't pick and choose, guys. You can't just wait for all the apps to come in, wait to get 5 apps to come in and go, oh, of these 5 apps, which one am I going to pick? No, 100% illegal. City of PDX, you post something, market it publicly, there's then a 72-hour wait hold where no one can apply. If someone applies before that 72-hour wait hold, they then get an 8-hour penalty added to their application. So there's that caveat. Another thing we come in all the times with owners is, well, I don't like cats. No cats in my unit. And we have to go, hey, just so you know, we can't abide by that. Just so you know, ESA animals, service animals, those are a protected class. So when we get an application in, what you do is you get one application in, you have to screen that application 100% in full before you're allowed to move to the next. You can't just cherry pick. Totally illegal. If an application comes through and they match everything, every single screening criteria, they have it in spades, it doesn't matter that you don't like cats. They have an ESA letter that has cats. So yes, we have it in the posting, no cats allowed. But if they have that ESA letter, that cat is a protected class, and we're not going to deny them. They are going to move in. And no, we can't charge a cat deposit or a pet deposit just because you really want us to. That is illegal. So there's a lot of things like that.
Hold on. So no pet deposits, even though, wow.
Yeah, but they're still held within the same pet stipulations. So with that, we still have them sign the exact same pet addendum. We just state, this animal is ESA. We're not charging for pet rent or a pet deposit, but your animal is still held within all of the exact same stipulations. So if any damage is found, the animal is barking, scratching, doing their business in the house, anything like that. Nasty. That's violations, guys. You aren't protected from violations, even if you have an ESA animal, still a violation. So, that is one way you do get protections. You just don't get the extra money for it. Another thing is security deposits. In the City of PDX, you are allowed to have one security deposit match the stated monthly rent, and then you're only allowed to do half of an additional security deposit for the remainder of that tenancy. Does that make sense?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so let's say your rent's $3,000. So your total monthly rent, here's a check for $3,000. And then you go, okay, $3,000 deposit. Here's a check for a $3,000 deposit. And let's say they do have pets, like actual pets, not ESAs. Or, there is some caveat for unmet screening criteria, but the rest of their applications were amazing. And, whatever, we can do a higher security deposit. So you can only do one additional check for that. And it's only half of that amount, which would be $1,500. And that security deposit locks in for the remainder of the tenancy. You cannot charge any more security deposits after that. That account is closed for business. So no, we had an owner, was a private landlord, had multiple properties. She was charging first month's rent, last month's rent, and security deposit. Not allowed. And she had no idea. You're not allowed to charge for carpet cleaning in the City of PDX. No private landlord knows that. They're constantly charging it. So there's little things like that I honestly think a lot of tenants, especially going through private landlords or property management companies that also aren't following these rules, don't understand that their rights aren't being held into account. We hold everyone's rights into account. We hold the owners to compliance. We make our tenants pay rent, and follow the rules. Everyone's held to the same regard.
So, the screening process, is there anything else, let's say a prospective landlord needs to be aware of? One of the questions somebody actually asked me recently, they're considering renting their property out in Beaverton, for example, or Hillsborough. Well, what about Section 8?
Section 8 is interesting. Section 8, the tenant has to apply. There is a process. It usually takes 1 to 2 months for them to even get approved, if they get approved. And then with that, once you have that stipulation in place, the property management company is either sent a check or an ACH payment for that tenant's rent.
But what I was driving at, I think, is that in Oregon, pretty much every landlord is obligated now to take Section 8,
Yes.
which didn't used to be the case years ago, of course, but I think that's accurate, right?
Yes. So we accept Section 8, 100%. You're not allowed to not accept Section 8, but it is on the onus of the tenant to set that up. And there's few tenants that actually will go through the process to completion to have that set up.
It is strenuous. I mean, on the tenant side, yes, it is absolutely strenuous, but like you said, it's their responsibility. From the landlord standpoint, though, you can't turn it down once it's in place, so yay?
Yeah. I mean, on the flip side, there is a flip side of no matter what, you always know you're getting rent for that property.
Not 100% per se, just depends on the Section 8 coverage, but yes, at least you're getting a chunk. So
yes.
that's the silver lining right there.
Yes.
So let's say the screening process is over and the tenant is moving in to walk through or not to walk through.
Oh, you walk through. You walk through and you take at least 200 photos. We have some houses that are about 3,000, 3,200 square feet. Those ones have about 500 photos. So when you do a move-in, even if you have a move-in condition report and that move-in condition report is like, oh, acceptable, okay, yeah, it's good, okay, yeah, there's one slight ding, protect yourself. Just take the photos. Take photos of every angle. Take photos of the trim. Take photos of the windows. Open up every single cupboard. Show that it was empty. Open up your appliances. Show that they were deep cleaned. Turn on the ovens. Show that the burners are heating up. When you do a move-in for your own property, you need to protect yourself. And protecting yourself, proof is in the pudding. Proof is going to be in those photos. So I will always slightly admonish private landlords, especially if they have other properties and they're only giving us one, is, hey, I know it seems silly for you to take that extra 20, 30 minutes taking a kajillion photos. Take that 20, 30 minutes. Take those kajillion photos. Get them at all of the angles. Get them up, down, side. Check your water features. Triple check your appliances. Ensure that when a tenant moves out, you have proof to go, that quarter size hole was not on that wall. Well, look, you have a picture that shows it literally wasn't there. Tenant is unable to fight that. Oh, hey, look, that's a pretty large stain on the carpet. That wasn't pre-existing. Here's the picture. So 20 to 30 minutes of a private landlord's time just taking photos is going to save so much heartache in the future.
So speaking of walkthroughs, something that I know my original property manager didn't do, and again, found out pretty much from you when we switched over, you do semi-annual walkthroughs for the landlord and for the tenant, obviously, and basically see that the property is actually being kept up per the agreement, right?
So we do a lot of walkthroughs at Delan. So our first year we do 3 walkthroughs. I mean, we have like our move-in, right, where everything's pretty and they sign things and everyone's happy and we get their keys. Then we do a 90-day walkthrough. And after that, it's every 6 months. And in our leases, when we, move people in, everywhere it goes, we do walkthroughs. Our walkthroughs, we're taking photos of everything. Except inside of closets. We don't go in closets. That's your own thing. But we don't open drawers. We don't open closets. But we do go in and we take pictures. We check all of the water features, the toilets, the showers, under the sinks, running all the faucets. We always find leaks every single year that the tenants, whoosh, they didn't realize, but we'll find them for you. And then with that, we check all the smoke detectors. And yes, we are on the lookout for violations. So My coworker Tyler, he's my right-hand man. He's pretty much everyone in the field. He knows all of our tenants by first names, last names, animals, all of that. We also know that that 3-bedroom house, that is a single woman on the lease with no kiddos. So, as a single woman with no kiddos on the lease, there's a lot of men's clothing all up in this unit, and that's about 6 pairs of shoes, and hey, there's all the jackets, and ooh, so there's things we also look out for. We look for violations, like, do they have unauthorized pets? Like, why do you have a cat scratching post? You have no cat. Why is that post there? There's only one person registered on this lease. There's obviously multiple people living here. That bed literally has been slept in last night from your bed. So that's another thing. We don't like issuing out violations. Luckily with our tenants, we rarely have to, but when we find them, we do. And it's because we want to ensure that who's ever living in your home, whether it's another human or a pet, they have to abide by those lease terms. And if the tenant gets caught and they don't fix it within 14 days, well, then they can move out. Or they can fix it within 14 days and not do the behavior again and then be safe. Luckily for us, tenants like to fix things. So if they don't fix things, then you invite them to move out. If they don't understand what an invite to move out is, we then might have to go through the evictions process. We get a lot of inherited tenancies where the current property management company does not want to do evictions, does not want to issue violations, does not want to have to go above and beyond. So we inherit properties where we will help facilitate those evictions. And it's because the tenant is not taking care of the home or not paying rent. And that's not fair to the owners. I mean, everyone has lives, everyone has strife. There's tons of programs for tenants if they need help with rent assistance. If a tenant's actively destroying your home, I don't have much sympathy for that. They're actively destroying something that is not theirs and is just hurting the owner and making that home they're currently living in not a good place to live. So we also will help other outside owners evict, violate, and get their home back up and ready and rentable to tenants that will take proper care of their home, pay rent on time.
And that's awesome, actually, because, yes, I understand there is some negative perception, landlords are slumlords. Okay, some are, but, that's a very small percentage of the greater majority. And the majority of the rentals, single family rentals especially, meaning, homes, condos, townhomes, those are owned by a human. They're not owned by a BlackRock. They're not owned by a mega corporation. They're owned by other humans, like you, like I, like a lot of my clients, actually. And we have bills to pay too, and we have mortgages on those properties. So when our property that's being rented out is being destroyed or is not being respected, well, that's a real family out there that's going to start suffering financially too. And there isn't that much assistance, if any, for the actual landlords. And that's a full circle again to why I'm a very strong believer in property management, especially in Oregon, Portland specifically. That's a must. That's your insurance policy against a crappy tenant. That's your insurance policy against damages. That's your insurance policy against a potential lawsuit because you didn't pick the tenant that you were supposed to pick, so to speak. And that's where, like I said, I've learned so much from our conversations over the last, year and a half roughly. It's been mind-blowing. But here is one more piece that I also stumbled into, and this is something for potential landlords looking for a property management company or interviewing a property management company. Here is something to watch out for in the contract. And yes, guilty as charged. I did not read the contract in its entirety as a landlord before I signed it. So yes, boo-hoo, bad on me. But here is the clause, and that's the prior property management company essentially obligated me to put the property on the market with them when the time for us came to sell, or whenever the time came to sell, And as soon as I put the property on the market with a different agent, because most property management companies are also real estate companies or realty companies, as soon as I would have listed the property, they would have dumped my rear and canceled the contract on me basically immediately. And that is something also of, to me, that was pretty much sticking a knife and twisting it.
And unfortunately, Ella, you're not the first case where we have onboarded other property owners because of that. We have property owners like yourself that wanted to use their own realtor, or we have property owners that just wanted to sell their house and were given the boot. We here do not do that. It's not our house. It is your house. So we work with outside realtors. And with that, we also pay them a realtor referral fee for all you outside realtors that want some extra cash. And for us, when we are, doing renewals, so 120 days before renewal comes to play, we'll always CC your realtor as well as have you on there and provide you the rent income estimates. So if your realtor is like, ooh, you know what, Ella, that market's getting a little hotter. Here, let me get you a CMA. And that CMA is going to show you what you could possibly net, as a sales price. We do that and you decide to sell. Selling a home with tenants in it is not fun, which is why a good chunk of property management companies will wash their hands and just walk away. It is a lot of work.
And that's something that was my actually next question to ask you about selling a property, more specifically, under what conditions
Yes.
you can actually sell the property with a tenant in it.
So with that, it's very hard to ever serve a termination notice, especially if someone's lived in a property after the first year of occupancy. So, in your case, your tenants have lived there for what, 3 years now, 3.5? So, they are locked in. So Ella here can only do a landlord qualifying exemption, which she can move back into the property and actually move into it, not just say she's going to move into it. She can decide to sell it, but has to have.
Sorry, I believe if I do choose to move into it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's so me or immediate family member.
Yes.
Basically, whoever that is, we have to be in that property for a full year.
Yes, you actually have to move into that property. We did let one owner go who went, oh, I want to sell the property. And we went, okay, you have to do it one of these landlord qualifying reasons. And they're like, oh, we're not going to do that. Just say we're going to do that. And we went, no, we're not going to lie for you. Like, you want to lie, totally fine. You can go do this on your own. Like, I'm very big with the compliance, very big. Selling a home with tenants in it is sucky. It is. You'll get a lower selling price, usually about 10%. You cannot guarantee those tenants will be clean during the process. You cannot invite them to move out during showings. They're always going to get up in arms about the fact you're conducting showings. But you know what? It happens. And when it happens, what we'll do is make the process as painless as possible. So the tenants understand, hey, this is going to happen whether or not you like it or not. Please, let's work together on this. And the better we work together on this, hopefully the sooner the house is sold, sooner that you don't need to worry about it. Or there's other things you can do as an owner. Maybe your house hasn't been updated in about 15 years. And when you wanted to sell it, you did want new appliances. You did need to do a full repaint. You did want new carpets anyways. That's going to fetch you an extra $60,000, maybe $70,000 in net sales at the end of it. So you know what? That qualifies as major repairs and renovations. You're cutting off utilities in order to do the appliances. You're ripping out the floors. You might put in, new kitchen countertops. You can serve a 90-day notice for that and ask the tenants to leave that way. So there's things we can do to facilitate getting a tenant out for you to then have a tenant-free home to list on the market. But you have to do it under the guise of Oregon tenant landlord law.
Is there a minimum threshold for the actual amount of dollar value of repairs, or is it just
not a dollar value
major renovation?
Time. So what has been advised to me through my CEUs is that it's about a month. And that's what we go by too. If it's about a month's worth of repairs and a tenant literally does not have access to essential functions during that time for like a month, then you're in the clear. So I mean, if you're ripping out floors, taking out appliances, doing repaints, and a lot of times like HVAC's getting changed in there, usually like they're updating the heating system or installing a new furnace. So think about like what you need essentially to live. Like if all of your appliances are getting kaput and they're changing the countertops in order to put brand new appliances in, you don't have access to a kitchen. You're not going to be able to cook. Like, how are you going to live in a place where you can't cook? That doesn't work. Or you're changing everything in the bathroom. Don't you want to go to the bathroom? I don't know about you, but I think I would like to be able to use a bathroom in my own home. So that's the way you kind of have to think about it. Like, what are the repairs and renovations that will literally make it impossible for someone to cook, clean, go to the bathroom, sleep at night, have heat or hot water, have hot water? If your major repairs and renovations do circulate around that and they take about a month, you're in the clear.
Awesome. So back to selling with a tenant, potentially. First of all, what's entailed when you want to sell a property and the tenant is in it? Minimum noticing, all that jazz.
Yes. Well, our very first tactic is that we will see when their next renewal period is up. If their renewal period is up, and usually it does because that's when we send it out and you get the CMA and you get the rent. Our first tactic is, as sucky as it may sound, just do the maximum rent increase and see if that's the driving factor to get them out. Oregon just passed a stipulation in the past several months that the new max rent cap is 10%. So in City of PDX, it's always been 10%. If you raise, rent 10% or more in City of PDX accidentally, if it's 10.01%, your tenant can say, oh, that's too expensive. And then you're paying thousands of dollars in relocation fees. So ours is only 9.9% in the City of PDX because we're paranoid.
So hold that thought. Didn't our laws stipulate that, and I'm not trying to get legal here, this is just to verify, weren't our rent increases actually tied to the inflation index in the past?
That's the exemption now. So there's an exemption. So in the past, before they mandated just like the full statewide cap, everywhere else in Oregon besides City of PDX, it was, it's like the consumer rate.
Inflation plus 5?
Yeah, like with the CPI rate. So like last year in 2023, it was 14.6%. Like that was the max you could do. In 2024, it's 12.6%. But then people heard this whole like, oh my God, it's only 10% everywhere in the state. You can't do that. Au contraire, there is an exemption. That exemption is if your home has been a rental for 15 years or less, it can go to that 12.6%. You're not capped at that 10%. But this is the thing private landlords may not realize. I mean, are they going to be clicking through to find that exemption? Most likely not. So at the most, they may go, oh my God, I'm only going to do 10% because that's all I can do. Or they don't even realize that there's a max rent rate and they raise it like 20%, which isn't the best. We have also encountered private landlords that have done that in the past. And we're like, no. We can't do that. That's no. But that's the thing about having a property manager. We know this stuff. We know how much you can raise rent. We know how many times a year you can raise rent. We know legally how you can raise rent. Guys, doing it in a text message, guess what? That doesn't count. That does not work. That is not legal. So that's what we're here for. So like if you want to sell a house and the tenants are in there, for Ella's home, it's been a rental for under 15 years. We would do the max rent rate of 12.6% and see if that motivates them to move out. And then with that, if that doesn't work, then we can talk to them and just be really, really honest and go, hey, you know what? This is happening. Your owner is going to be selling the property. As you could see, we did the max rental rate. So that's not negotiable. Your rent is going to go up. And then usually what I do is I will also give that tenant listings of other active properties and go, just so you know, like with that rent rate, you're officially paying higher market rate than any of these other properties within the same neighborhood. It might be more conclusive to you to decide to move out and not be spending an additional $150 a month in almost an identical unit. So I will also do that to entice tenants to move out, to show them that they have options, right? I mean, they do have options, and that works pretty well, actually, a lot of times, sending them other listings. So they realize they do have the ability to find something for the same value, but actual less price. And then if that doesn't work, we just tell them, okay, this is the way it is. You're just going to have to accept it. And we're going to make it as easy as humanly possible, and we can do it the easy way or the hard way. Let's just all work on the easy way. The final thing is, if you have tenants, and I'm just warning all of you private landlords out there, if you have tenants and they're going to fight you, they don't want showings, they are not going to keep their place clean, they are just going to be angry the whole time, which, they are paying rent, it is their home, but it's going to be a cluster the entire time, and it's going to be fight, 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 fight. You have the option for cash for keys. Cash for keys is when you and, $100 lawyer fee draft up a settlement that's like, hey, I understand that I get to live in this place and you can't not renew to me. You cannot terminate me. But you know what? If you pay me X amount of dollars, then I will move out on this state. That's another option. So there are options. There are ways you can motivate. There are ways that you can communicate. There are ways that you can literally pay someone off. But there's a multitude of ways you can facilitate getting a tenant out for you to get your home on the market for sale.
Now, the cash for keys option, and I'm picking on that one for a very specific reason, because I just had that conversation actually with a dear friend who effectively just went through that with her tenant with the cash for keys. The cash for keys also, in a way, and I know that so many landlords, and yes, my own husband was, hearing the cash for keys makes the landlords angry. Guys, I get it. I totally get it. But the cash for keys also typically stipulates that the tenant will move out of the property and leave it in basically not destroyed condition.
Yeah.
So there is some value to that, as a matter of fact. And as much it does hurt the pocketbook, it's not always necessarily the worst solution to the issue.
No. I mean, we had a home, and this is like a perfect cash for keys situation. Beautiful home. Actually, to this day, my favorite home in the portfolio. Wraparound porch, 3-car garage, massive shed, circular drive. Like, I love this. But the owner, and it was like at the top of the sales market, right? The owner saw the forecast. We saw the forecast of like, ooh, you could get a lot of money for this house. Do you know what was so much better for the owner? He did cash for keys. And we actually love those tenants. So I transferred those tenants into another similar square footage house as well. So they didn't even have to apply for anywhere else. I just transferred them into another home. So they were happy. They barely had to think about doing anything. They got thousands of bucks cash. But you know what that owner got? That owner got a house that was moved out about 3 weeks before they wanted to list it in the hottest market at the time. So they had the tenants move out. They were able to go in there. They were able to do their little tweaks, their modifications, and they got it listed at the height of the season. And they got their dollars. They got that sales price. They got a very high sales price. They would never have gotten that sales price if the tenants had lived in there. And it's because tenants would have been living in there. It would have been awkward. Showings would have not have been great. And you generally get 10% less of your sales price when you have tenants living in there because of all of those reasons. But because they were able to get the tenants out, they were able to do a few $1,000s of updates here and there to a beautiful, fresh, tenant-free house. They got top dollar.
And let's not forget about the property being put on the market with the tenants, let's say, with the tenants. Then the only way they can move out is when a potential buyer, let's say they cooperate, and let's say they do abide by the showings and they kept the unit clean or the property clean and they're not being a stick in the mud and it's not a cluster. Let's say it's, dream come true. But there is another zinger. And the zinger is the 90-day move out notice from the accepted offer only if the buyer is going to owner occupy the said property.
There are people that wish to buy homes that have tenants that live in them because they do want it to be their primary home, right? Like that's what they want to do. And then there's people that buy properties with tenants in them because they know there's tenants in them and they want it to be an investment property. But if you have an owner that does want to have that home be their primary residence, you can only issue that 90-day notice. And remember, it's not 90 days that you put in the mail. It's actually 94 days because it's 3 days for mailing, not including the date you actually put in the mail. So it's technically a 94-day notice. A lot of people don't know that. I like to tell people, I have 4 days to every single notice you ever sent out. Cover your bases. Otherwise, it will get thrown out and you just have to start fresh. So with that, you have to have an accepted offer. And there's an affidavit in that offer that says, I swear as the buyer, this will be my primary residence. That's when you can serve that 90-day notice. You have to have proof of that.
Freaking awesome. Absolutely freaking awesome. And talking as a lender, having a buyer put the closing off for 90 days creates a whole other can of worms on the buy side. Because, again, from the technical standpoint, if you're buying a home owner occupied, you have to move in within 60 days. Otherwise, you have violated one of the effectively federal forms, and the house is not occupied in 90 days, in 60 days, and 90 is greater than 60. So, in effect, then you're jeopardizing your loan. So, that's not a catch. And then, of course, there is the lock-in time for the rate. And as volatile as the interest rates have been, that's the whole other story. And really, again, not every buyer wants to wait for, 90 days. So
and
it
it's
just
not a
flips it on
guarantee,
the others.
right? Let's say
Right.
they have that notice and they go, oh, totally, I'll move out. And then they don't. Guess what happens then? You then just
Eviction.
got a house you're doing an active eviction on.
So that can become, like I said, from the lending standpoint, that alone can be not just a cluster. That can be an absolute legal nightmare. And that is something that, again, that's a conversation I have with potential buyers who are looking at tenant occupied properties to buy. Also letting them know that they may want to seek legal advice, early on, or, put additional protections in, because that opens up a whole other can of worms. So there's that side that not everybody considers when looking at rental properties.
I mean, we even had a case where the tenants were more on the volatile side with a history of communications, where the owners literally were moving back into the house. Like they were just going to move back into their house. Tenants would not get out. We had to settle out, but the tenants were just like, nope, not moving out. Our owner was like 8 months pregnant, was hoping to get into the house so they could build the nursery so she could have birth and have a nursery. There's things that happen with property management, guys. I mean, there's things that come out of left field. There's things that people somehow found the gray, even though there's a million black and white words. They found those 5 gray words and they're taking advantage of it. And that's really why having a property manager is good to have. We're there for you. We're there in your court. We're there to protect you. We're there to honestly also protect the tenants to make sure that they're being taken care of. We're there to maintain your asset in a great condition. We're just there as all of the liaisons, all of the repairs, ensuring you get your money, ensuring that your home is at the day your home. It's not just being taken over and you feel powerless. No, it is your home. And that's what a property manager will do for you.
And you're absolutely correct. I mean, like I said, that's really the biggest reason why I wanted to have this conversation. And I'm not trying to scare my clients moving, my existing clients who talk to me about rental properties or turning their current home into a rental and buying another one. I'm not trying to scare them into getting a property manager. I just want them to be aware of what the potential pitfalls are and to legally protect themselves. And probably one of the biggest misconceptions about the property management is, oh my God, it's expensive.
Do you know why it's not really expensive? These are the reasons why. A, we know what sells on the market. We know how to get that maximum rental rate. We have owners that they're undercharging like $300 a month. Not even kidding. They had no idea what the real rental price was. Or we have owners that are like, oh, it's really not that important that I need to paint things. Actually, yes, it is. We literally just got you $150 extra a month because you repainted these 2 rooms. Like, this is where we come in. We come in with our expertise. Like, we know exactly what tenants want and what tenants will pay for, where we can maximize that rental rate. So we get our owners, especially people that have been private landlords, we get them a heck of a lot more in terms of rental income every month. Not only that, but we're placing tenants in that have been screened inside and out. That is so unbelievably important. You want to ensure who's ever going into your home doesn't have a history of bouncing rent checks, doesn't have a history of noise complaints, doesn't have a history of having a $2,000 cleaning bill when they moved out. We're sourcing tenants that have great histories of being tenants. And then we're just in that home all the time. I do think it's funny that private landlords I do think that they feel awkward going into a home. That at least that's like every private landlord that we've encountered has been like, oh no, I haven't done a walkthrough in like a year. And you're like, do you have any idea like what the status of your house is? And they're like, no, I'm sure it's fine. And we go in there and they're like, what happened? I'm not trying to scare people at all. It's just, as a property manager, we will get you the highest rent income. We will place qualified tenants. We will ensure your home's being taken care of throughout the remaining of tenancy. Upon move out, we can get all those repairs done for you, and we will get them done fast. And we will get them done at great races with quality vendors that we vouch for and do great work. We're not piecemealing things together. We're not doing handshake deals in order to get a 20% discount with cash. Like, we are doing quality repairs. We're getting them done fast. We are getting your house back on the market within 2 weeks. So you have a short vacancy period. That's what your property management company will do for you.
Again, not all property management companies are created equal, as has been my personal experience, because you're my number 3. But you are bar none the best one, and hence the reason for the conversation, because I just want more people to know what they really need to look for, what questions to ask their potential property management company they're interviewing to take over the management. If you're a novice landlord, don't do it yourself. If you're an experienced landlord, but you're maybe moving out of city or out of state, don't do it yourself. There's so many reasons why really having a really, really good, compliant, legal, what have you, property manager will actually protect your asset, pun intended. It's not just CYA, it's a real CYA in terms of protecting your real asset, which is your rental property or multiple properties, and protect you as a landlord. So if you need help, if you're thinking of renting a property out, Noelle is my go-to, and I can't recommend her enough.
Thank you, Miss.
But also, if you're trying to dip your toe in the water, there's been multiple people that I've put in touch with Noelle just to give them a rundown. Some of them ran away because
it's very overwhelming. Oh my!
It is very overwhelming.
People have no idea, like the laws, the stipulations, one of my favorite ones, we call it owner blindness, is when we do like complimentary free home inspections, right? So we could tell you what needs to be fixed, what's essential. My favorite one to this day was, it was a pocket door into a bathroom, and it was within the primary bedroom, and trying to close the door and going, hey, this door doesn't close. And the owner goes, oh yeah, it hasn't closed in years. And I'm like, we need to have this door closed. She goes, no, you don't. And I'm like, we need to have this door closed. She's like, well, I mean, I pee with it all the time open. That's fine. We're like, owner blindness. Like, just so you know, there are certain things that like we'll walk around and we'll find things that we're like, you may be chill with that. A tenant is not chill with that. Like, yes, your smoke detector technically works, but it's like 25 years old. We're putting in new ones. And I do always let anyone that comes to me, I always let them go with this information. Please interview other property management companies. There are a cajillion of us. There really are. All of us will specialize in something different. you might have certain needs that my company might just do too much of. Or maybe you are looking for a company that's an a la carte, like you don't really care how often they go out. So this is what I always let people know to ask, at least other property management companies. 1, do you do repairs? 2, how often are you within the home? 3, are you doing separate charges for things like walkthroughs, inspections, yard checks? Are you charging onboarding fees? Do you charge cancellation fees? That's a big one that's embedded in a lot of PMAs that people don't see. Our company charges 2 fees. We do 50% of the first month rent for a new tenant placement. And then
Which is way more than reasonable, FYI.
the amount of showings, the listings, like all of it, the screenings, all of it, right? And then we do a monthly management fee starting the second month of tenancy on. We don't do renewals. We don't do cancellations. We don't do onboarding. But we will do certain things that will be charged above and beyond. Like if you're asking us to source like 4 bids for one project, we have our preferred list of vendors. They do amazing work, give us great prices, and we know we can count on them. I have a right to charge you an additionally hour rate. If you want me to go out and Google and try to find all of these other vendors that we cannot vouch for. So there are certain things my company does reserve the right to do an additionally hour rate for. But it is real clear in our PMA what the stipulations are.
Again, Noelle, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And for anybody who has any questions, would love to connect with you, would love to talk to you, your information is right there on the screen. And thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Ella.
Again, thank you enough for the information you've imparted. There's been a few tidbits that I've picked up for myself throughout the conversation, as I always do. And again, with my highest recommendation, if you ever need a property manager in the state of Oregon and Portland Metro specifically, Noelle is bar none the best. And there you have it. Thank you so much, love.
Thank you, Ella.